Welcome to Wildlife Conversations, everyone. I am your host, Jen Ritchie. My guest today is the young and talented wildlife photographer based in the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem and Alaska. She grew up in Florida and went to college there, but traded its sandy beaches for some of the most beautiful mountain landscapes in North America. Her images have been characterized as dramatic and ethereal and have earned global acclaim, featured by notable platforms such as Petapixel, BBC, Prints for Wildlife, and OM System. As an OM System ambassador and guide in the Tetons and Alaska, her mission goes beyond the essence of wildlife through her lens. It extends to sharing that appreciation with others. Welcome. I'm so happy to welcome Tiffany Taxis. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, thanks, Jen. I'm
You're
so excited to be
welcome.
here.
I know it's going to be fun talking with you. We met in Jackson, I think a couple years ago at the Presbyterian Church at the art show, the art fair.
Yes. Yeah,
I
and
know.
actually, I think that was just a year ago,
Was it? Oh my
which
gosh.
it feels like we've known each other for way longer than a year.
It does.
But yeah, it was last winter, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I was doing an art show there, and I had posted on my Instagram, and
Yep.
Jen came and swang by.
I know. I was like, well, I have been wanting to meet Tiffany, and I actually got to spend 2 weeks in the Tetons that December. And so it kind of felt like I can be a local for 2 weeks. I'm going to the art fair. I'm going to the I'm just gonna act like I live here. And I saw it in your stories, and Dan and I swung over there and bought a calendar and a print. And I still have your print at my desk. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's up at my desk in my
That's
room. Every
awesome.
day I see your work. So that's really fun. I try to do that with people, like have things all over the house. So it's fun to be
As like a little
reminded.
inspiration wall.
Yeah, just reminded of all these great talents out there that are so fun. So you grew up in Florida,
Yes,
and
which
then
is where I'm at right now.
that's where you are now. So it's probably much warmer than some of the areas you're used to.
A little bit warmer. Yep,
Just a
that's for
little bit.
sure.
And then in 2020, during the pandemic, you were at FSU,
Yes. Yeah,
and
so I
then
graduated from Florida State.
yeah, and that was in sort of the art, graphic design, photography area.
Yeah, so I got a degree in fine art with a
Mhm.
focus in graphic design and then
That's cool.
photography.
That's very cool. Yeah. My brother's in art history and works in New York, so that's always been a cool little like resource for me to ask him questions and like learn about all that. So it's fun. And then
Yeah,
so everything shuts down
yeah,
and you
yeah.
make your way
So
to Wyoming.
yeah, that was not in the plan at
That's
all. So
crazy.
yeah, I graduated in spring of 2020. So I went home for spring break and then just never went back to school because everything shut down.
Mhm.
And I was living at home and was applying to every job on the internet that I could find and wasn't hearing back from anyone because nobody
Yep.
was hiring.
Yep.
And so I uh, was with a friend one day at the beach and she was like, I think now's the time to do something that, you would never do, right? Like apply for jobs that, maybe it's not the best job, but like it's in a really cool area.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had been thinking about texting an old friend to see if I could come visit her.
Mhm.
And it just so happened that the owner of the motel that she was working at broke her arm the day before.
Oh
And they were
gosh.
looking for extra help. And so I booked a ticket to Wyoming and I was like, oh, I'll just be there for a few weeks and I'll help out. And then I met people and everyone was moving to Jackson, which was about an hour from where this motel was.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll just do 6 months in Jackson. And then 6 months turned into
Yeah.
like 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's so
really crazy
hard.
how it all worked out.
Yeah, it's so hard not to fall in love with it,
Oh, I mean,
honestly.
it's the most incredible place. So yeah, I mean, I if I could afford to, I would live there
I know.
forever.
Yeah, I know, I've said that a million times. I've
Yeah,
even
you just
looked
need a
like
few million.
I've looked at, like, I'm like, "Should we get, like, look at nanny jobs?" Or, like I've already raised, like I have still have 1 child in high school, but it's like, why I would start over. I would start over if I could just go out there, just tell me anything. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
It's just
So,
great. So you're in Jackson, and how did you decide, "I'm gonna pick up my camera out here?"
yeah, so, uh, one of my friends, Arthur, who I had met when I was out in Wyoming for that first month, he ended up
Mhm.
moving with this like big group, and we ended up being neighbors.
Mhm.
And at the time, he was really starting to get into wildlife photography, and so I started being like, "Hey, like, could I tag along?" And so we just started shooting together a ton.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, like, on the first day that I showed up in Jackson, I was driving my car out there, and he sent me a pin to this location where a bunch of moose had been hanging out. And this is around November.
Yeah.
And so all of the moose are just like in that one central area
Oh.
out near Kelly. And it
Mhm,
was
mhm.
like, 8 moose, and I'd never seen a moose before, and I
Oh
think
my
that's one of the
goodness.
images that I sent you,
Oh, let's
but
look at
yeah, it was
that
like
then. I have that. Let's look at it. I can't believe this. This is one of the first moose you've ever seen. Is this it?
it was I
This was a
can't
this is
s
a snowy one.
no, not that one, it was
Okay.
the photo of 2 moose, maybe I didn't
Okay.
send it.
We'll look again. I have others. Just let's see. Let's see. I don't know if I have two. I do have one here. I know this is at Kelly though, so I'll share that. Oh, oh, I'm sorry. It is two. You're right. Yes. I didn't see that other one. Oh,
Yes.
yes. Oh, goodness.
So
In
this
the
was the
canal.
first day that I had ever seen moose, the first day I, like, got to Jackson, and I drove out there with my mom, and it was just absolutely insane,
That's
and
totally
so
insane that this is your first time. They're in the water. The Grand is right there.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
so I
amazing.
just thought that was, like, every day in the Tetons. I was like, "Oh, well, this is just how it is all the time."
I mean, Instagram does make it look that way.
It does, yeah. So I started shooting with Arthur a ton and just, like, fell in love with it, and I was working, at a hotel there in Jackson, and every day before and after work, I was going out, and once you start going out there, it's pretty addictive.
Oh, yeah. There's not a morning I can lay in bed. I just have to get up. I can't help it. It's
Yeah,
just
and then
so
you
gorgeous.
and then the one day that you don't go out, is the
Exactly.
the day that something crazy
Yeah, yeah,
happens, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, as such a young person, never seen a moose. Was that your first time in Wyoming as well?
So besides the month that I had spent,
Yeah.
like, there,
Mhm.
yeah, this was the first time that I had spent, you know, any period of time in Wyoming, and the first, like, real time in the park in Grand Teton.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Tiffany, that's just amazing to me. I'm serious. Like you have this degree, you're in Florida, you just happen to go to Wyoming and like all these happen to, and then you find this amazing talent that you have and
well,
this
thank
amazing
you.
love for these
Yeah,
animals.
yeah, I think the thing is it was just, like, kind of reconnecting with,
Hmm.
like, the things that always, like, made me really passionate.
Yeah.
Um, so growing up, like, I always loved animals.
Hmm.
Um, we fostered puppies for the Humane Society, and we
Yeah.
rescued, like, all sorts of different animals. We used to have a duck that we rescued that lived in our front yard.
That's
And
cute.
I worked at the zoo in high
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
talking about conservation issues that their
Mhm.
wild counterparts faced. And then when I went to school, I kind of lost touch with just like the
Yeah.
volunteering and
Yeah.
like, spending time out in nature.
Yeah.
I grew up scuba diving too. So it was
Oh,
just like,
very cool.
once I got to college though, I was, focused
Yeah.
on school and friends,
Sure.
and then it was like as soon as I got out to Wyoming, it was like finally like those two passions had merged of like my love for photography and then,
Hmm.
the outdoors. And I think once those combined, it was like, oh wait, like not only do I feel like I'm good at this, but like I really love it. And
Yeah.
so um I
It's so
think like
true.
you have to love it and then, spend a lot of time out in nature. So
Yeah, yeah. So it's like I've talked about this before, and like so many people say this where they can look back and see the little hints and foundation of things coming. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. And that sounds like what happened to you.
totally. I think too though if like COVID had never happened,
True.
I would have just done what was safe, which was like get a 9 to 5 and I'd been thinking about moving out to Denver because it was like,
Mhm,
"Oh, well,
mhm.
I'll be close to nature,
Yes, yes.
in Denver." And now I can't say that Denver is close to nature,
I know,
after
I
living in
agree.
Jackson.
I agree, I know. My son lives in Denver. He's going to school in Golden, and I'm like, when did Denver get so busy? It's just
Yeah.
like, because we, raised our kids going to Rocky Mountain tried to go every year. So that was our park for years. And, we'd been in the Tetons a little bit, but then in 2018 pulled through and Blondie had her 2 little ones, and I was never the same again. It was like, I will never be the same again. Like, I'd been photographing stuff at Rocky Mountain, but, like, to photograph grizzly babies was like, I'm never the same. I'm totally
Yeah,
different.
and Blondie's had all of her cubs are so cute.
I know, she's so beautiful. She and her cubs are so beautiful, and now to watch 1063, it's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be so
Mhm.
so this passion and talent and hard work comes together, and then how did you decide that you wanted to guide?
Yeah, so I spent the first 6 months in Jackson working at a hotel, and then
Mhm, mhm,
when I decided to re-sign my lease and stay another 6 months, which I
mhm.
said it was just gonna be another 6 months and that's it,
This is funny.
um, uh, I was like, "Okay, well, if I'm gonna stay, I need to find a job that I actually enjoy,
Yeah,
and also maybe something that pays a little bit more because Jackson is so expensive." And
yeah.
Arthur had started guiding a bit, and then I had met some other people in the community that were guides. And I was like, "Hey, like, I think maybe I could do that." But I didn't have any experience, so I went online and found like every guiding company in Jackson, and I emailed the company and I was like, "Hey, here's who I am, and like,
Mhm.
I want to get my foot in the door. How do I do this?" And like nobody responded
Oh,
except for
no.
one company. And so the company that I worked for, Jackson Hole Wildlife Safaris, the
Mhm,
owner at the time, Jason, he
mhm.
was like, I'll meet with you and we can have coffee and talk about what you can do.
Yeah.
And he was super supportive and gave me like a list of things to do, which one of them was there's a course through the University of Wyoming.
Mhm,
It's an outdoor guiding course.
mhm.
And he gave me some books and I signed up for the course and I read the
Yeah.
books. And when I got back to him, he was like, you did all these things, like, I'll take a chance on you, and started
That's
training me.
amazing.
And then I started guiding that first summer that I was in Jackson. So after that winter, I started guiding and yeah, I mean, I like owe them everything. They
That is so
definitely took me
cool.
under their wing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
super thankful for that. And
yeah,
that just allowed me to um, like explore the guiding world and then that led me to like guiding in Alaska as well. So
yeah, yeah. And when you're teaching other people something, it really helps you solidify what to keep it the
100%.
same. Yeah, it changes everything. I was a
Yeah.
teacher in my past life. So when you're learning something yourself and then teaching it to others, you're just strengthening that knowledge over and over again for yourself, which is helping you build that whole side of wildlife photography.
Yeah, and then
So
even
cool.
too, just like the way that people see the world, like you can learn
Yeah,
something from everyone.
so
Um,
true.
And when I am guiding, like, photographers, it's so interesting to see, like, what people decide to include in the frame or, like, exclude, and what catches their eye.
Yeah.
Um, so I find, like, when you shoot with people that have never shot in the Tetons, they
Mhm.
end up creating, like, really magical work,
Oh,
and you're like,
interesting.
I might not even pick up my camera, and then I see their photos afterwards, and I'm like, "Why was I not shooting? That
Yeah,
that was an
yeah,
incredible moment."
yeah.
But you become, like, somewhat jaded, right? Because you see it every day.
Yep. So true. Yep. Well, do you have a favorite moment in the Tetons? I mean, how could you pick? But there are so many magical things that happen. Do you have things that stand out?
Oh, so many. So it's, like, so hard to pick just
I know,
one.
it's like picking your favorite child or something.
Yeah. I have a
You shared
few.
some images with me. Do you wanna share one of those images? Can't
Sure.
remember. Let's see. Oh my goodness, I think I do this is maybe not a favorite time, but this was a really dramatic time. I think I remember when this happened.
Yeah. That that was one of those moments that just, like, left me, like, completely speechless.
Yeah.
Um, and, like, being able to see wildlife behavior is something that
Mhm.
is unforgettable.
Yeah.
So that day I couldn't find any other wildlife, and typically I don't photograph otters because they just poke up their head for, just a second.
Mhm.
Um, and so they're difficult to get photos of if there's not frozen ice.
Yeah,
Um,
they are.
and so uh because there was nothing else around, I decided to go down to the water's edge,
Mhm.
and all these otters are like, thrashing around in the water. And I'm like, oh wow, like they have a really big fish that they're, they're struggling to like, pull up onto this chunk
Yeah,
of ice.
yeah,
And then I realized that it's another otter. Um, and yeah, that was probably one of the most brutal things that I've ever seen, but
yeah.
also behavior wise, really, really interesting.
Yes, really
Um,
interesting. Something
yeah, that's
about
like
them, there's something they did not want him in their family group.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% exactly, sure what happened here, but
Yeah.
I had spoken to another photographer, and they said that for weeks leading up to this moment, that this specific otter had like facial lacerations and wounds.
Yeah.
So it had been attacked multiple times, and then this was just like the final
Goodness.
attack.
Like everyone thinks of otters as these cute, playful things. And when
Hmm.
I saw your video, I think you had video of that, right, too?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember thinking, what? These beautiful otters that we see, what are they doing to each other?
No, so
Oh,
crazy.
oh, it's this
Yeah.
well, it's just the way things are, and just to witness that in real time. Let's go back to the moose that we shared earlier quickly because it's just gorgeous. That's a beautiful classic photo.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best mornings with moose. I had that moose, and then at the time, I think it was also hoback that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I was the only person that was out there. The light
Oh,
was beautiful, and you know, it's not often that you get like a moose to pick up its head completely,
right,
and
right,
then not have any sage or like snow in the way.
right.
Um, so that's a shot that I've been going for a while, of just like a head-on moose, um, with a nice soft background.
Yeah.
Um,
And that beautiful powdered nose.
mhm.
He's gorgeous, gorgeous boy. And yeah, the framing is so beautiful with the snow. The last 2 years have been so difficult with all the sagebrush and not enough snow. It's like
Mhm.
I got spoiled with all the snow a few years ago. And I'm like, wait, we have all this sagebrush now. We need snow.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
too, I think like the snow also helps like give them a little bit more lift, because when it like
mhm.
packs down on the ground, it makes them, just gives them a few more inches,
So
which then when
true.
they
Yeah.
lift their head up, then there's not that sagebrush in the way.
Right, and they're just
Um,
buried in it. I know.
yeah.
Yes. Ugh. I wanna share this one of the I think it's a bull elk, just a second. I just love this. I love environmental images, and this is just gorgeous. That light is so beautiful.
Yeah, so that's that ridge that's like right across from the Gravant River.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, and for so long I had been thinking like, oh, it'd be so cool if, you got an animal up on the top of that ridge.
mhm, mhm.
And I was driving home one afternoon, and I was on the phone, and I saw an elk that elk that was walking along that ridge, and I was like, I've got to go. And I just like hung up the phone immediately. And since that I've never seen anything up on that ridge again. So
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I think further down, I got moose up there.
oh,
But
that's awesome.
it was fall, and it was gorgeous. I'm like, "Get up there, get up there, go on, go on, go on." It's like, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening." And then, like, in the winter, no, I haven't seen those, but the snow and the blue and the light, it just it makes it so gorgeous. So gorgeous.
Yeah.
So then you made your way to Alaska. And
Yeah.
I saw you there a couple times when I went last summer. We were talking about that before we got on. That was like such a neat thing to see you twice. It was
Yeah.
crazy. Like in this
Two
huge
different
expanse.
parks.
I know, huge expanse. I'm like, Tiffany? And then so I mean, you just fall in love with that place. It's so
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, Alaska, once you've been there, I mean, it just completely captivates you.
Yeah. And how did you decide I want to guide here? So you guide in the summers there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the last 2 summers, I've been guiding
Okay.
there.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the first summer that I went there, We were talking about this before we pressed record. But I went out there for a camping trip, and like everything went wrong on that camping trip. But it was still so magical.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like I have to come back out here
Yeah. When I'm not
and spend
sick.
the full summer. Yeah. Yeah. So I was saying like I had COVID. I was like so unwell. I missed most of the trip, but the
Ugh,
like 2 days that I was outside of the tent, um, I was just absolutely falling in love with the area.
yeah.
And we were at Brooks Camp. So
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, really incredible spot. That's where I actually spent my first summer,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Hmm.
in Alaska,
Yeah.
and then last summer I was in Lake Clark,
Oh, gorgeous.
which we were doing more of like fly outs,
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
to different locations, and I mean, there's no bad spot in Alaska though. I mean,
Yeah.
everywhere is beautiful.
Yeah. I remember flying over Lake Clark thinking, it reminded me so much of Banff. The waters were so turquoise
Yeah,
and different from any other flights we had done. And I just thought, I mean, it was just like paradise. It
that's
was
a good
gorgeous.
comparison.
The turquoise was just like, whoa.
Yeah, the water from up above in the
Yeah, it's
plane.
so gorgeous, so gorgeous. And then I was in a yellow plane, and to watch the yellow against the blue, it was just so pretty, so
Oh
pretty.
yeah. Yeah, the first time I went through Lake Clark Pass,
Hmm.
I was just crying on the plane.
I know. Yeah,
I was like, "I can't believe that this is where I'm
I
gonna
know.
be
I
spending
was
the summer."
definitely tearing up when I got off. The person next to me was like, "I think I saw you go." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you probably did." Hand to the chest, hand to the heart. Couldn't help it. It's just so majestic. It's crazy. So then just the privilege to guide there, it must afford you just so many opportunities to see such beautiful things and so many beautiful interactions with wildlife.
Oh, definitely. I think
Yep.
too, like, um, this past summer, just being able to go to so many different areas, and
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
lodge was maximum, like, about 12 to 14 people,
Mhm.
so getting to
Mhm.
really know the guests and spend time with them, and
Yes.
then coming back to the lodge and hearing them talk about their day with other guests
Mhm.
and telling people, like, "That was, like, the top 5 days of my life," or, like, "That
Oh,
was easily the best day of my life."
it's so
And knowing that you
rewarding.
got to spend that with people, right? Like, with those people,
Yeah.
like, you got to spend that day and that time with them, or just, like, watching their faces light up,
Yeah.
when they experience bears for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a privilege, and
So
it's so
rewarding.
inspiring to see.
Yeah. I'll share some of your Alaska photos and you can share with us what was happening. And this one's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. So, that was probably, like, the best day of bear viewing that I've ever had.
I wondered, I
Um
wondered.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, Definitely, like, my favorite day in Alaska.
Mm,
Um, we had decided to go this was the first summer when I was at Brooks. We had decided to do a fly out, and we had picked just, like, a random day, and we were really hoping that it was gonna be a good time to see
mhm,
bears at this location, but
mhm.
we didn't really know when we booked it. And when we got there, it was just bears everywhere. I mean, and once again, like, same thing at the Tetons. I was like, "Oh, well, this is just, like, how this place is."
Yeah,
And I've been back many times since, and it's never been like this ever again. Um,
but that's why
and,
you
like
keep going back.
yeah,
You're
I'm
hoping.
hoping that it'll be, like this day again. Yeah, I'd spoken to a guide at the end of this day when we were about to get back on our plane,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Yeah, I've been coming out here for 30 years, and, like, this is maybe, like, one of the best days I've ever seen out
Oh,
here."
wow.
There were just more bears than you could count. I think, like, in, like, about a 100-yard stretch, we counted, like, 40 bears, on the river.
Oh my goodness.
And then up on, like, the tundra too, like, we were eating lunch away from the river, and you, like, had, one bear that came running up with a salmon, and then, like, 3 or 4 more bears just came and appeared, and were just chasing this bear with the salmon,
Yeah,
and we're just eating our sandwiches, and this entire, um, like
paradise.
yeah, it's just, like, unfolding in front of us,
Yeah.
and then, like, this photo here too, just, like, whenever you have an animal that feels comfortable enough to nurse, or,
Mhm.
to take a nap in front of you, like, that's such a privilege as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What a privilege that she's felt so comfortable. And that cub looks a little older. So what month was that?
Um, this was August. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like beginning of August.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I still have not seen like mamas and cubs. So I definitely would like to see that in Alaska.
Yeah.
And then,
Cubs are the best.
oh, oh I want to, we have one of Brooks Falls, which is gorgeous. That is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look, you can talk about shutter speed there a little bit for people because that you can tell with the water that you
Yeah.
nailed it. Yeah.
I can't remember like what shutter speed it was. I think it was
Hmm.
like 1/15th of a second
Hmm. Hmm.
or maybe like 1/30th of a second.
Hmm.
But I was using um my OM system camera has a live ND filter. So I
Oh
had
yeah,
that
that's
on
cool.
to
Hmm.
cut down on some of the light. But yeah, sometimes the bears when they are waiting for fish to jump, they're so focused and honed in that they stay still enough that you can get that nice blurry effect in the water.
Yeah.
Um, and so it takes a few attempts, but it's definitely doable if you find the right bear.
Yeah, which is good for people to hear. Like it's not perfect the first time. You can take bursts and like maybe get 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 50.
A
Just
100%, especially
keep working at it.
when you're dealing with low shutter speeds, like your success rate is not going to be 100%.
Right.
It's, you know,
Right.
depending on how slow you're going to, it's going to be like, yeah, like you're saying, like 1 out of 100 or,
Yeah. And it's
1 out of
okay to
50.
play. It's okay to play and try different speeds. And I was on the lower platform and one came out. And so I was trying to do a wide with him and I just played with it. It was really windy too. So like took my hood off and just played with the shutter speed. And when there's only one bear, it's like gave me time to really focus on him and think about it. So that was really fun. But
Yeah.
but this is a classic Brooks photo for people that want to go or haven't been there. This is a classic, like hopefully a classic scene you'll see there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially like you do want, yeah, like a bear up on the lip fishing.
The lip,
And you
yes.
want that jumping salmon shot.
Oh yes, the famous Mangelsson salmon jumping in the mouth. So do you know the name of this bear? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. I think
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure which bear this was. I'm pretty sure I was calling this bear Alien Bear, because it kind of looked, it had a funky looking face, which you can't really see in this photo. Um, but I never figured out which bear it was.
Yeah, the side view is good.
Yeah.
I think we have another Alaska. Yes, yes, one more. I think this is Alaska, right?
Let's see.
I
Oh,
think
yeah, so that's the day that I was just talking about
okay.
where the bears, like, exploded up the bluff, and they were chasing this bear that had a salmon, and, like, you can see it in this photo, but, like, yeah, they were running, like, when your dog gets the zoomies,
Yes.
and they were just, like, I mean, like, bouncing around and just, like, leaping, and so it was pretty hysterical to watch, just, like, all of this unfolding, and they're just running around the tundra,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
but yeah, this bear was definitely full of energy and life,
It's
which
so
added
cool.
a lot to the photo.
Yes, it really does. And I mean, it is a testament, all this whole story about them was how close up that face is so fun. Um, it's a testament to how we need these ecosystems. Like you don't see them in this concentrated spot every day. They are in big, big expanses of territory and need that to roam and fish and mate and all that. And it needs to be protected, which it seems like it's a constant battle. Constant battle.
100%.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Especially, like, in this area and, like, the surrounding areas is just, like, you know, yeah, protections for these animals and, um, like, the same thing in Yellowstone, right? Like, these animals don't understand that there's boundaries and
Yeah.
areas where they're protected and areas where they're not, and
Right.
so when they spend the whole season, around humans and it feels like a safe it's safe to be around humans, and then they step
Mhm.
outside of a boundary and they can be, shot, that's,
Yeah.
a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a constant battle, it feels like out west and in Alaska, always fighting for those wild spaces. Um,
100%.
you're out daily almost in the Tetons or Alaska when you're guiding, are there still things that surprise you? Or do things get old
Yeah.
or do they surprise you every day?
Yeah, every day. I think just when you think that you've, like, figured out their patterns or, like,
Mhm,
their
mhm.
behaviors, I feel like you finally, like, see something that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think within, like, science or guiding, you can never really say never, because
Mm.
as soon as you do, like, nature will prove you wrong.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
true.
so I think, like, I can't think of something specific that surprises me, but every day, I feel
Yeah.
like you learn something new.
Yeah, and it keeps you going. It would have to be that joy of seeing all these things and just the wonder of figuring things out. And like I would like be out in the field, like Googling things like, wait a minute, what's happening? Like what is this?
100%.
It's so cool. It's just so cool, like you said, the privilege of witnessing it, that they allow you to witness it. It's just, it never gets old.
No, I feel like I have, like, the best job in the whole world, um, and so, yeah, it never gets old.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so you're going
and
back to Alaska this summer?
I am,
Yeah.
yes.
And then when will you be back in the Tetons?
Yeah, so I just started a new job working for a photo tour company,
Mhm.
and so in a few weeks, I head to Alaska for a Northern Lights trip.
Oh,
So I'll be there for
fun.
about 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
then, I come back and I'll be in Scotland,
Oh,
um,
goodness.
for yeah, like, for about 10 days or so,
Okay, what
and
will
then
you
when
do
I come
there?
back so that's, going to be, like, all around Scotland,
Mhm.
and it's a landscape, photography tour,
Oh,
so a little
fun.
different than what I typically do, um and then after that, I will be, heading to the Tetons, and
Yeah.
then I'll be there for about a month in May,
Mhm,
and then Alaska for the summer,
mhm.
and then, as soon as Alaska is done, I'll be back in the Tetons for, like I think it's, like, about a month,
Yeah,
and I'll be doing some Yellowstone and Grand Teton trips,
yeah,
and then, um, yeah, so it's a super busy year
that's fun.
for guiding.
I was saying to you that you've been quiet, and I could tell you've been really busy. So
So busy, yeah.
I didn't know if that was like a social media on purpose, like, are you deliberately, like, taking a break or, are you just so busy? Which is kinda nice.
A mixture of both.
Yeah,
So busy, and then also I've never been good at social media, of
yeah,
just, like, remembering to post every day
yeah.
or, yeah, like, as you know, like, social media is, like, more than just, like, posting a photo. It's, like, you have to add the hashtags, and you have to, like, come up with a caption, and, it's
And
about,
now
like,
it's reels. Ugh,
yeah, and now you have to take videos and, like, all of these different components that go into it, and I'm definitely a perfectionist, so if it's not perfect, it's like I don't wanna post it,
yeah,
um, so I just haven't had time to really, like, put into social media, but that is on my list of things to do,
yeah.
um, is get better at that.
Yeah, but but you're putting your time in the right things that are creating this career and portfolio that's still working towards what you love and what you're passionate about. So that it has to be rewarding.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think I know that I'm still creating and I'm,
Yeah.
still, working on images, just need to do a better job of putting them out there. For sure.
It's tough. It is so tough. So when you look back at just like since 2020 and just can you believe it's almost been 5 years? Like
No,
when you look back,
no.
how much have you changed? Like, what are you proud of? What do you see?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I hadn't even realized that it had been 5 years until, like, really just a few days ago. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, like, I graduated almost 5 years ago."
yeah,
And it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it also like, there's been so much that's happened. Um, yeah, I think, like, the biggest thing is just, like, putting myself out there. A few
yeah.
years ago, I told myself that, like, if I wasn't getting told no, then I wasn't trying hard enough.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And, like, if the answer is always yes, then, like, you're not asking for enough. Um,
Mm,
and so I just kind of put myself out there, and a lot of times I'm like, "Oh, well, I won't win that," or, like, "I won't get that opportunity because like I'm just not qualified for it. And then I do.
Hmm.
And I think that's like been something that I've let hold me back in the past. So just like putting myself out there and like trying all sorts of different things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a crazy 5 years, and none of this was part of the plan. To like move to Wyoming, to be out in Alaska. But I'm so
Discover this
grateful.
amazing talent. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like I guess I never expected all of this to happen, but it was the perfect like merge, like we talked about before,
Yeah.
of like my two passions. So I feel like I really am like living like my dream.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, I
I-
feel really, really lucky.
Yeah. I think that's a good lesson. I recently talked to Maddie Clark, and she was saying kind of the same thing, is like, you will still be scared, but you still have to step out and do it, even if you're a little bit scared. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's so true. Like, you still have to step out and try. Like you said, if I'm getting yeses all the time, that's probably not challenging enough or the right thing. So that inspires me to like keep trying to be brave, and because there are a lot of things you have to put yourself out there. And
A
this
hundred percent.
it's not easy. It's not easy when the creative field is just not easy. So that's really inspiring. And if you talk to younger women, like maybe let's say junior high, high school, college, like what would
Yeah.
you say to them if they want to get into wildlife photography?
Ooh, yeah. My like we just said, like just do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to look online and be like, oh well, I want to photograph these like big charismatic animals. Like, I want to have bison photos, but I don't live near those animals.
Yeah.
Like maybe you live in a suburban area,
Mhm.
and it's just about getting out and like photographing what you have nearby. And there's so much wildlife in suburban areas that you don't even realize
Mhm.
until you start looking for it.
It's very
Um,
true.
I always thought like, oh well, there's no animals near me, like where I lived in Florida growing up. But now when I come back, like there's burrowing owls like walking distance from my
Oh,
house, like
that's very cool. Yeah.
uh, and so like I never realized that as a kid, but now like that I'm looking for it, I pick up on it.
That's
Or
right. Yep.
there's so many different types of birds or like amphibians. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
just utilize what you have nearby and start shooting.
Yep.
Um, because you can make like even the ugliest place look beautiful. Um, it's just you have to love it, right? Like
It's
and you
true.
have to learn how to make it look beautiful and like compelling.
Yeah. And that shows through whenever your eye, you can make something beautiful, it will show through. Yeah. That's what I would say too. Just like practice, 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 shoot local, just keep trying and make connections. Don't be scared to make connections with other people or reach out to people that are down the road a little further than you. So that helps a lot. I started late in life, and I wish I would have figured this out in my 20s, but some like we were saying, things are laid as a foundation for a reason. And sometimes you just find things when they're meant to be. So, yeah. And
A
so
100%.
it takes patience and a lot of hard work. But
Definitely.
I think what I've learned from this podcast is like everybody has their own way of seeing things. Like you were saying, if there are 3 or 4 people on a tour in the Tetons, they each will have a different image. And it's so cool to see that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has their own style and their own approach, and um yeah, like you can really like I think within photography like you can create your own style. And
Hmm.
then people look at your work and they know it's your image, right?
Yeah.
Um like you were talking earlier, I think before we started recording about Steve Mathis, and like I can look at one
Oh,
of his
yeah.
photos and know that that's his work based on how
Immediately.
he edits and how he composes the image. Or
Yep.
like my friend Brooke, like
Yep.
her photos, when you look at them, you know that's Brooke's photo.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's okay at first if you're just learning and trying things, but eventually you start finding your own voice. And I think you have that too, Tiffany. I see your
Oh,
voice.
thank you.
Yeah, let's show that isn't it a bobcat you shared with me?
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't
think
want
I
to
sent
leave
that.
that out. Oh my goodness, it was gorgeous. Speaking of your voice, this is a beautiful image.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually with um a few friends, and it was just an encounter that we were not expecting. Ran across the road.
Ugh.
We thought the encounter was over. It had gone off into the willows right behind it, and
Look at
yeah, it
that.
came back out,
Whew.
and yeah, I don't think I've ever been more emotional after uh
I was gonna say
an
that's some
encounter.
adrenaline. That's some adrenaline.
I think I, like, sobbed for about 45
Oh,
minutes.
yes, yes, yes. What locate not what park is this in or what area?
This was in Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Okay, that's
Yeah.
so cool. And I love the snow. Now, how did you get low? Were you just did you just have seconds? But I can tell you're lower.
Yeah, so the cat ran across the road and
Mhm.
then, went off into the bushes, and we hopped out of the car, and we walked out into the snow. So we were in the snow,
Okay.
sitting and laying down
Yes, yes.
and hoping that it was gonna come back out, and it did, and it was pretty curious, and it just wanted to
Oh,
kinda,
that's
like,
very
check
cool.
us out,
Yes.
um, and so that's how we were able to get these, like, kinda low angle shots,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it kinda watched us for a while, and then it walked back across the road the same way that it came from and disappeared over this hill, and nobody ever saw it in that location again, like, the following days or anything like
My
that,
goodness. And
which just a crazy encounter.
oh, so beautiful. Look at that. And so at that point, were you using the OM system at that point?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes,
tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that. You are an ambassador for them, for
Yeah, so I used
formerly
to
Olympus, right?
yes, yeah. So I
Yeah.
used to shoot Canon, and then I switched over,
Yeah.
just because the gear was so much smaller.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I had some friends that were shooting with OM system, so I had
Mhm.
tried it out. And the gear's a little bit more affordable.
Mhm.
So that was also a little bit helpful, right? Like I could
Yeah.
upgrade to some bigger telephoto lenses without breaking the bank as much.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
still expensive, right?
Yes, yes.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, once I switched, I feel like I just fell in love with photography even more,
Oh, that's cool.
just because I felt like the system just, like, fit m my style better.
Yeah.
I really like the color profile of it. It's a
Mhm.
little, um, like, less saturated. I feel like the colors are a little bit more true to life.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I've had a great time shooting with it.
That's good.
So I
And
shoot with the OM1 Mark II mostly now.
okay. And I just feel like you've been so supported by that. It's really nice to see them supporting women too,
Definitely. I
having them in
think
their branding.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that they do a really great job of being really inclusive.
Yeah.
Like we were talking before, like the wildlife industry and the photography industry is really male dominated. And they've, I feel like, really supported like various women in this
Yeah.
industry, and um,
Yeah.
that's
I love
something that
seeing that.
I appreciate in a brand.
Yeah, I love seeing that. We did have a submitted question, and Karthik asked what your favorite wildlife lens is with the Ohm system.
Yeah. So
Did you
my
say that?
go
Did I just skip that? You just said the body. I don't think you said
I
the
said the
lens.
body. Yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah. Um, the 150 to 400 with the built-in teleconverter,
Oh, that's nice.
that allows it to go to so that's equivalent to 300, to 800, and then the built-in teleconverter then takes you to 1,000.
Hmm.
And that's such a great lens because it just allows you to not have to keep, like, switching. I mean,
Yeah.
300 to 1,000 is, like, all that you'll ever need.
Hmm.
Um, I also, before that, shot with the 300 prime, which is like a 600 prime,
Hmm.
and I loved that lens too and
Yeah.
still have
Yeah.
it. Um,
Yeah.
so and then the other lens, I guess, that I use as well is like the 40 to 150 if it's
Mhm.
something that's a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Um, so like moose, for example,
Oh, that's
because
fun.
they're so large and you want to include more of the landscape, I really do like the 40 to 150 for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
I think in the Tetons, you do have some unique opportunities to be low with them, and, like,
mhm.
it's so cool to get a wider shot with them when you're lower like that.
Yeah,
That would be
it's
cool.
easy to want to zoom in all the way, and I am very guilty of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
we all are, yeah.
yeah.
It's so fun. It's so fun to have a mixture. So I
Yeah.
have to remind myself, okay, get an environmental. He is so handsome, but back up a little bit, back off a little bit. So when you go to Scotland, will you take that 40 to 150 or do you have a landscape?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
bring that one
Mhm.
for just, like, more, like, telephoto landscapes, and
Mhm.
then I'll bring a wider angle lens too.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see wildlife too. You're going to be like,
I hope.
wildlife sensors will be on.
Oh, definitely.
That's so
Always looking
fun.
for wildlife.
And then Philip Scrimshaw asked if you had any advice for seeing a Wolverine. And I think he's being cheeky a little bit because of your story of a Wolverine.
Yeah. Like, 0 advice. I've seen one, and that was, one of the first summer I went to Alaska, we drove, and so on the way back down, we were driving, and, I was in slippers, um, like, completely unprepared to
Yeah,
see any
yeah,
wildlife, and it
yeah.
was just trotting alongside the road, um, which was crazy, and then we saw one other, photographer there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, did we just become best friends? We just experienced this magical moment together,"
We're
and she wasn't.
connected forever.
Yeah, I'm, like, being, like, so much, and this lady does not seem that excited. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, like, I had heard that it had been in the area, so I came out after work to look for it." And I was like, "That's the craziest statement I've ever heard, that you went out after work to look for a wolverine and then you found it."
Yeah,
Um,
really.
so maybe we should get that lady on the podcast, because maybe
Yes.
she has some tips.
Yeah, I was totally calm about it. I remember you posting about that and like, these aren't great images, but we saw one and it wasn't a bad image.
It wasn't bad, it was just, like, it wasn't
Yeah.
sharp.
Yeah, yeah, but
I'm
it's
pretty sure I
proof.
was, like, shaking and convulsing, and, yeah, I mean, like,
Oh.
it's not an image that I could print, but it is, like, a proof of life
Oh,
image.
sure, absolutely. You have to be thankful for that.
Oh, so thankful, like, I don't know if or when I will ever see a wolverine again, so,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, so, so thankful.
That's what we kept saying in Yellowstone. We are like, because we got lucky in the last day on that first hour seeing a huge bison stampede and then 2 wolves came along and we're like, "Okay, let's just start saying the other things we'd like to see."
Yeah, you just start, like, manifesting it, you're like,
Yeah,
"I'm just gonna say it out loud."
Wolverine, lynx, mountain lion. And, it was just kept being bison, 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 which are amazing anyway with the frozen faces. But still, one can wish.
Definitely, I'm
One
glad
can
I'm not
dream.
the only one that does that.
No, 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 no. So another question was, how do you back up your images? Do you have a system for that? That's from
Yeah,
Trish
so
Hennessy wanted to know that.
yeah, so I, use a external hard drive. I
Mhm,
don't use, like, cloud or anything like that,
mhm,
but I do have, like, uh, a travel, external hard drive, and then a home hard drive, and
mhm,
then I do have a hard drive, that lives here in Florida,
mhm.
at my dad's house, so then that way, if, let's say, like, my apartment burned down or something,
Yeah,
that I wasn't losing all of my work.
yeah,
And I don't think that you have to take it to that extreme. But to me, like, some of these images I, like, sell on my website,
right,
or like, I use for work. So
yeah,
I can't lose them.
right,
And that's
right,
why I have them in
right.
3 different locations, and then have them in um yeah, like, 2 different, like, physical locations.
So I think those are really good tips. So a travel one, which is a great tip. And then I usually buy one once a year and label it for the year. But I don't have another one in another location, which I need to do. So that's a really good tip. I've heard it
Or you can
over
put
and
it in, like,
over.
like, a fire safe,
Yes,
like,
yes,
box or something,
yes.
um, or even just, like, dropping it off at a friend's house, so then that way you have, like, it in a different
Yeah,
location.
I think that's
Not
a
that
really good tip.
not that anything's probably going to happen, but it
I
could.
know, but still, just to lose everything, it would
Yeah.
be really, really hard. Do you have a system like how you label them or like how you do your folders? I mean, it's very personal to people, so I don't know.
Yeah, I do them, like, by date,
Yeah,
and then so, like, all of them are divvied up that way,
yeah.
and then I have a folder that's titled, like works in progress, and then
Oh, that's a
one
good
that's like
idea.
final images.
Uh-huh.
So then that way I know like where I'm still like working on an image, but I have more edits to do, and
Yeah.
then which ones are going to be like kind of like my favorites, so
Yeah.
that I can
Yep.
just go to that folder.
That's a
And then I
good
have like
idea.
other like subfolders too, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm probably not the best example for organization because my images are not. If somebody else were to access them, it would be a mess. But I know
I
where
know,
everything
I get
is.
it, I totally get it, and, like, people talk about in Lightroom and, like, their catalogs and their keywords and stuff, I just, like, glaze over. And it's something I just have to get better at. I don't know how to do that. I have folders and stuff, but I don't know about all the keywording and all that. I don't know. At some point when you're teaching yourself everything, like, I taught myself portrait and wildlife at the same time, so you're learning how to run a business, learning how to do portrait photography, learning how to do wildlife and all the gear. It's like some things just kind of are the way I taught myself, you know,
Yeah.
and I
And
can't
if you didn't start doing it from the beginning, then it's
yeah,
difficult to start halfway through,
yeah,
because then all the things are not keyworded. And
right,
in order to go
right.
back and keyword what 50, 100,000 images, like good luck.
I know, so it's just like now it's just daunting. I'm like, "Okay, I'm not exactly sure," but, all right, so Danny asked, "1 animal you've yet to photograph that's on your bucket list?"
Yeah. Um, Mountain lion for sure.
Mhm, which everyone's
So
getting right now in the
I
Tetons.
know it's breaking my heart.
Yep,
I've seen mountain lions now twice,
mhm,
both in Yellowstone,
mhm,
but through like a spotting scope.
yeah,
And like I did get an image technically, but it's like the smallest in frame. It's like this little tiny speck.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I don't really consider it an image.
yeah, yeah,
But I would love to see a mountain lion.
yeah, yeah, that would
What
be
about you?
oh goodness, I think that is one for sure, and I did not get wolf photos when we went. They are very small in frame as well when we went last week. I was at the wrong side of the snow coach when he turned around
No.
and came yeah, and there were 13 of us in the snow coach, so it was packed. So, I didn't get that. So, I mean, wolves are still on my bucket list, yeah. So, and honestly, this is kind of probably will never happen, but those photos of whales when people are getting in the water and stuff, like, I would kinda like to do that.
Like an underwater shot?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I don't know that I can ever do that, but that does kind of appeal to me. So, I
me
wanted to
too. When
I
you
wanted
plan
to
that trip, let me know, I'll come.
yes, yes. For years, I wanted to be a marine biologist, like so many Gen X girls probably. I wanted to be
Me
a marine
too.
biologist. I know, and I would go to SeaWorld, all the like, and my kids would be like, "Mom, we have to go." And I'd be like, no, I'm just gonna stay here a little bit longer." And I was a swimmer, so it's like I just love the water. But that just didn't happen. So, but so I think there's a little bit of that still in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Underwater gear too is like a whole
I know.
other game. I mean,
A
like,
whole other
so
game.
expensive
I
and
know.
yeah.
So if anyone's listening and they want to take take us, just let us know. Let us know.
And have a setup we can borrow.
Yeah, really. Yes, absolutely. So, I have a little bit of a speed round. So
Okay.
we can do the speed round and it can go fast or you can take your time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be speedy. But
Okay.
so I do ask people, what's in your camera bag that you can't do without? Like maybe not a lens of your body, but other things. Like what is something you just find yourself reaching for a lot?
Ooh. Um, I would say, like, and it has to be photography related?
No, I mean, if something well, I mean, sometimes it's other things. Like I'm reaching for my Burt's Bees chapstick all the time when I'm out.
Yeah.
Wildlife
I would say,
photography.
like,
So
hand warmers.
oh yeah.
I don't wear gloves,
Hmm.
because I've never found a pair of gloves that I don't think gets in the way. Even,
Yeah.
like, the photo gloves, I can't stand
Yeah.
them, even if it's super cold.
Yeah.
So hand warmers for sure.
Yeah. And I like the rechargeable ones. Those are cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one that I have,
I
and
know,
then
I
you can
always
charge
find
your
myself
phone with it.
yes. I always find myself, like, ripping my gloves off with my teeth and, like, trying to get gloves off while I'm holding the camera, and I did just start using I actually have them right here 'cause, I still have the box, but I just started using the Weston, heated ones. This is not
Ooh.
sponsored or anything, but they're really thin and they're heated.
Okay, maybe I'll try them.
So I just started using those. I used those in Yellowstone. Yeah, and they worked.
Okay,
Um,
you've influenced me.
officially an influencer. So what's something in your camera bag that maybe it's there, but you never use it?
Yeah, um, I would say my tripod.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
it doesn't live in my camera bag 'cause
Yep.
oftentimes I just leave it at home.
Yep.
But unless I have to use it, I will do anything to handhold.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
your system is lighter too, you said.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So
lighter
that
and the
helps.
stabilization is really great,
Yep.
and tripods, especially for wildlife, just end up, like, making me so angry,
Yeah.
because
I
you don't have, like,
agree.
the flexibility to move,
I agree.
so
Yeah.
I would say, like, my tripod is something that I have a nice tripod and I don't use it.
I know. I do too. I spent a lot of money on it. It just sits here. And to travel for me, I have to fly, a lot to go where I want to go. And it's like, how do I fly with this big thing?
Yeah.
Oh, and I agree. I'm always taking it off anyway to get lower, lower, lower. So it's like
Mhm.
I want to be able to love it.
Me too. I thought getting a good tripod would be so helpful, and
Mhm,
I
mhm.
thought, like, I would use it to record video all the time,
I was just gonna
and
say that.
I don't.
I was just gonna say that. I know. Same, same. Um, so do you have a favorite snack while you're editing or driving around?
Ooh, yeah. I would say, like, what are those? Are they like the Dots pretzels, right? That's the brand that has, like,
Oh.
the really yummy pretzels.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Those,
yeah.
um, and, like, an Arnold Palmer
Oh, I was gonna say, what's your drink? Okay, that's
or an
good.
iced coffee.
Okay,
Yeah.
those are new answers. No one has said those. That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
need to make a whole list of people's snacks. So do you have this is gonna be hard to pick, but maybe one stands out, a favorite photographer, a favorite, artist or book or author that you'd like to share with everybody? That's a lot of things to choose,
Yeah.
but just one of those out of that
Um, well,
list.
my favorite photographer is probably
Aw, that's
Steve
nice.
Mathis.
That's nice.
I just think his work is so artistic, and I've admired it for, like, I'd say, like, he's been my favorite photographer for years now,
Mhm, mhm.
just because, like, shooting in the Tetons, his work looks so different than I think everyone else's,
I agree, yeah.
and, like, sometimes the things that he does are crazy, like, he has this I think it's like a wolf shot, and he did, like, a slow panning shot of this wolf, and, like, never once in my life have I had a wolf in front of me and thought, "You know what? Let me try something that
I know.
might not work." I mean, it was like a wolf that was, close, right?
Yep,
And he's putting his camera in a low shutter speed and panning, and
I
that's,
know.
I think, insane, but created this, like, really, really beautiful image.
Yeah, and he always makes
So
it work. I know, that's exactly I came home from Yellowstone, and I'm like, I just feel like I didn't try things, and then I go and look through his, Instagram, and I'm like, there's all this panning and, like, intentional camera movement with bison, and I'm like, "Oh, whatever, whatever." Okay, okay. So, yeah, yeah, he's probably my favorite too, but obvious. I've had him on the podcast and he's been a great mentor to me, but I don't want to let him know that too much.
Yeah, just edit this out.
Okay, we'll edit that out. We'll edit that out. And what's the best piece of advice you've gotten, photography advice that you've gotten from someone? Do you have one that's memorable?
So this wasn't given to me, like, as advice for photography,
Mhm.
but I remember back in high school, there was a teacher that said, like, when you're done with a writing assignment, take, a few days and don't read it, and then go back to it, and then all the mistakes are so obvious.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that happens a lot when you're really close to your work, is that you've been editing it for, 30, 45 minutes, and you can't see the fact that there's something so obviously wrong with it.
Mhm.
Um, and so I always try to go back to it, like, several times and take that space. And then usually, like, I'm able to see, like, okay, this is, like, where the colors are wrong, or, like, this is
Yeah.
where that edit went a little too crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so like, yeah, like when I was in Churchill for polar bears, I had this shot that I had taken that same day.
Hmm.
And, everyone was like, like post it. It's such a great shot. And I was like, no, 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 like it's not ready.
That's
There's things
great.
that are wrong with it that I can't see yet.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's always true. So I would say just like taking that step back.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, like, within anything artistic or creative.
That's so true. I have there is that pressure to post quickly, like to make it current. And and I have to do the same thing.
Especially in the Tetons, where it's so competitive, right? Like, you probably weren't the only person there.
Right.
So if you see
Right.
something really magical, it's like you want to be the first one to post it,
Yes.
right? Like,
It is a different photography ecosystem.
it
For
it's
sure. Every national park, I do not walk up and see like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of gear. Like if you're in the Tetons, that's all you're seeing are these huge lenses. And it's like, I can go somewhere else and it's like, wait, where's everybody? Where's the gear? Where's the
Yeah.
competition? It's so different. I remember when 399 came out with the quads and she walked across the dam in Jackson Lake and it was all covered with snow.
Mhm.
Remember, and I wasn't there, but I remember all the images came out like so
Yeah.
quickly. And then Steve Mathis, oh, maybe like a couple months later.
Yeah.
But he really waits. So
Definitely.
I try, but sometimes I'm just not good at waiting. And then I will look back and be like, yep, you should have waited. You
Yeah,
should have
because then you look at
waited.
it, you're like, "Why did I edit it like that?" Like,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah. I think with social media, I also get the thing like it's just social media. I'm putting way too much care into it. Like, who cares? But then it's like, but it is my work.
Mhm.
I do care. So
No, 100%.
I do care. So just wait. And like you said, you even have the works in progress folder. So that's really cool. That's a really good tip. Really good tip for people.
Thanks.
Um, so is there a wildlife photography moment in your life that you can think of that most filled your soul or fed you the most out of all this experience the last 5 years?
Yeah, like we said, like, there's so many,
There's so
right?
many.
I would say when I first started out, um, this wasn't long after, I had moved to Jackson, and I was out on my own,
Mhm.
and when I moved there, I had, like, 3 of my grandparents passed away within, like, a
Oh,
really short period of time, and I remember I was out on a drive, after one of them had passed, and I was just, like, grieving and driving and looking for animals, and I saw this fox off the side of the road, and I'd walked out and, like, sat down in the snow, and another car drove by, and as it did, the fox, like, went running off.
mhm.
And I stayed where I was at, and it eventually came back, and then, like, the same thing happened with another person who, like, stopped and got out of their car.
Yeah.
And so, like, after that person left, the fox, like, finally came back again, and
Oh.
it, like, walked up and was, like, kinda, like, checking me out a little bit, and then
Mhm.
maybe, like, 15 yards away, 20 yards away, it just, like, curled up and took a nap, and we just, like, hung out together, and it was, like, almost like
Oh.
I don't know, like, I'm not a spiritual person, but it
Yeah, yeah.
it felt like, you know, like, it felt safe enough to take a
Yeah,
nap
that
right
is so
there,
cool.
and
Yeah,
it was, like, one of those things where it was just, like, really inspiring, and it felt like, you know, really good to be connected with nature,
yes,
and
yes, yep,
yeah, I'll never forget that moment because it felt so intentional,
yeah, and
and
healing for you as you're grieving.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so
definitely.
nice. That's so cool. There's so many moments like that where you just feel like, "Okay, this is healing, this is where I need to be." There's some kind of connection there.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
too, like, definitely animals can sense, like, your intentions or, like, your energy that you're giving off,
Mhm.
and so, like, that's a big thing too is, like, remembering that, like, the way that you show up and the way that
Yeah,
you are around animals will impact the quality of your experiences.
yeah, yeah, and if anyone can hear and speaking of animals, that's my dog. He wants me, so if you can hear any growling in the background, that's Bodie because he's wanting me. I can hear him. I'm like, it sounds like I have a bear at my
I
house.
can't hear him, but I love
Okay.
that.
I have a little bear. His name is Bodie Bear, and he's growling back there wanting me. Um, we looked back, but as you look forward, what would you like to see the next 5 years look like?
Yeah, I have no clue really.
I mean, you're all you have to say is for the next 6 months, and then like these magical things are gonna happen. Just pledge
I
6 months.
guess. Yeah, I think honestly just like continuing to put myself out there
Yeah,
and um yeah, just making the most time for being out in nature and like doing what makes me happy and see what comes along the way.
yeah.
Like I was saying, like I have a super busy like year ahead of me and that's like
Mhm.
about all that I have scheduled so far is like up
Yeah,
until the end of 2025.
yeah.
Um and then yeah, I mean like I would love to go to Africa at some point in the next few years. Um
Too, me too.
yeah, I'd love to do, like, Patagonia for pumas,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
like, those are all things that are on, like, the wish list for the
Yeah,
next 5 years,
yeah,
but it's just about fitting them into the schedule.
yeah. That is very cool. It sounds like 2025 is gonna be busy for you. I look forward to seeing like all the things you're gonna see and share with us. So it's gonna be fun. Scotland will be a whole new thing. Have you been to Scotland before?
No, I've been to Ireland
Yeah,
for a few days, and
yeah,
then yeah, never Scotland, though, so that'll be
yeah.
really, really cool.
That will be cool. I can't wait to see your images. So, Tiffany, where can people find you? Where's the best way for people to find you if they want to reach out and see your work or buy a print or take one of your tours? What's the best
Yeah,
way?
so, my website is just my name, tiffanytaxis.com.
Mhm,
That would be, like, the only place that you can buy a print if you were interested.
mhm.
And then in terms of, like, I guess, more updated work, when I get better at it, will be on Instagram, which is also just my first and last name, Tiffany Taxis, and
Yeah.
then, I post on Facebook as well. Um, and then, yeah, for tours, I work for a company called Backcountry Journeys,
Okay.
and you can see the trips that I lead on their website.
Oh, that's
And then
great.
this summer, I'll be at a spot called Lake Clark Lodge.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's the next year.
Yeah, I'll have to go to Alaska so I can see you.
Yeah,
Just run into you.
apparently. Yeah,
And that was the first time I
we'll
met
run into each
John.
other
It's
again.
funny. Yeah, that is so
Yeah,
funny.
so
That was
funny.
a crazy day. I was so glad to see you at that point. Well, it's been so good to talk to you, Tiffany. It's been great to catch up and see you again and just hear more of your story. And I know people are really going to enjoy it. So I'm so thankful that you joined me today and come back anytime and tell us about your 2025 too, if you'd like. So,
Thank you, Jen. This was
yeah.
awesome, and I appreciate you
Oh, thank
making the
you.
time to chat. That was so
Yes, I
awesome.
appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much. Everybody, if you'd like to follow Wildlife Conversations Podcast, you can do that on Instagram at Wildlife Conversations Podcast. And you can follow me at Jen L. Ritchie on Instagram to see more people that are coming up. And we've got lots of guests for the rest of the year. So it's going to be exciting. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the Tetons, hopefully in the spring or fall. I'm hoping to be there in May and in the fall. So hopefully I'll see you.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Bye bye.